So today is our first virtual tour. We are excited to be hearing about sustainability features at Waterloo Park. And it's a very special day because it's Earth Day today. This month we'll be spending a lot of time talking about sustainable features, our environment along Waller Creek, and really celebrating nature. I think the dynamic that we have in our community with everything going on right now really makes us appreciate our natural spaces. So today is a really special moment for us to learn a bit more about that. We have some really exciting speakers today. Waterloo Greenway is a partnership made possible between us as a nonprofit partner and our City of Austin friends. One of our sponsoring departments is the Parks and Recreation Group. So today we'll be hearing from Michelle Bright and Lisa Storer. So I'm going to hand it off to them and ask them if they can briefly introduce themselves, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Bright. I'm a capital projects manager at Waterloo Greenway. And it's great to be here with you guys today. Thank you for joining us and spending some time on your Earth Day with us.
And hi, I'm Lisa Storer. I'm a project manager at the City of Austin Parks and Recreation Department. We're working really closely with Waterloo Greenway on this whole project, and especially on Waterloo Park, which is still currently in construction.
Great. So I'm going to get us all started here today. What you'll see on your screen right now is the full vision and scope of what we're calling the in the kind of northern end of this scope. So our project goes from 15th Street all the way down to Lady Bird Lake. It's approximately 1.5 miles in length, although our trail system will probably add more mileage to that as well. And we're seeing the whole project in a series of phases. So we're starting at the northern end with Waterloo Park. Then we have the project in the southern end, which is Creek Delta and goes to Lady Bird Lake. And then finally, we're going to be phasing in the middle section of the project. Once this is all done, there's about 35 acres of restored creek and parkland that will come about with this. So this slide here shows the full vision of Waterloo Park that is still currently under construction right now. This is about 11-acre park with about 1.5 miles of trails throughout it. To point out a few really exciting features of this park, because this park is very diverse in its nature. It has a bunch of layered experiences that we're hoping to really enjoy, hopefully very soon. So to point out a few, there's the Moody Amphitheater, which is a large event space that can host about 5,000 people. There's nature play areas and a family pavilion with public restrooms and food trailer areas. There's garden spaces, the Hill Country Garden, and a wetland terrace garden. There's also a section of creek restoration. So essentially, this is going to show you a little bit about what will happen in the southern sections of the project too. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So here are some renderings of this vision. On the left side of your screen, you'll see the Hill Country Garden, these serpentine trails that weave their way through existing trees and make these different beds for planting beds. In the middle section, you'll see a view straight on, kind of looking west of the Moody Amphitheater. During times when it's not used as an event space, it's going to be open to the public, so people can walk right up to it on the Great Lawn. And then on the far right, you can see a rendering of what an event might look like at this space. So just to orient us all, we're going to be doing this tour, and of course we wish we could all do it with you guys physically and be on the site, but since we can't, I want to just make sure you guys know where everything is. So on the right side of your screen, you're seeing 15th Street. Up at the top of the screen is Trinity, and to the left side of your screen is 12th, and then Red River on the bottom of your screen. Here, there's the 14th Street Bridge. So you'll see a bridge that crosses over the creek. This is one of the ways you'll be able to enter the park. There's also the Moody Amphitheater, the Great Lawn, And then you see this big S bridge coming down too. So what we're gonna do when we do this tour is we're gonna kind of walk it counterclockwise with north pointed up. And we'll see this image multiple times. It'll help you orient yourselves. So a lot has been going on in the past 3 months. The construction team has been working really tirelessly and doing a really phenomenal job. In this photo, this is December 2019, or I'm sorry, that's actually supposed to be 2020. Sorry about that. This shows a back of wall. I'm sorry, it is 2019. I'm confused here. And then April of 2020, you'll see how much work has gotten done here. So the amphitheater is almost fully complete. You'll see this kind of hovering canopy structure that's white, and we'll talk more about that a little bit more in detail, but ultimately that's almost finished and all the scaffolding has been pulled out from that structure. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our tour. So we're going to start, like I said, in kind of the northeast corner of the site with our creek restoration area, and this is about a half a block. Before we go to the next slide, let me just explain a little bit how the water moves through this image, because it's a little hard to perhaps understand. So Waller Creek enters underneath the 15th Street Bridge into Waterloo Park and moves south to this big gray structure that you're seeing kind of near 12th Street. That's called the Waterloo Inlet structure, and it is essentially the beginning of a large tunnel that takes flood water flows of Waller Creek underneath the city. So during regular kind of climatic conditions, this just is a flowing creek. But when there's large rain events, it does help mitigate some of the flooding issues we had in downtown. So this creek restoration area still is prone to big flushes of water. So you can go to the next slide, Melissa. Thanks. All right, so this is an aerial view of this, and it's looking south. So it's as if you're kind of like hovering above the 15th Street area. You're probably like, where the heck is the creek? Well, the way that teams do this sort of construction is they have to take the creek through a tunnel kind of underneath the work. So it's piped, essentially it's piped around the work. And whenever there's rain events or any sort of big events that bring water into the site, the team has to stop and take all of their equipment out of the area. They also have to relocate any wildlife that gets stuck down into these areas. So they're always coming through and making sure wildlife is being moved properly. But what you're also seeing, and you can go to the next slide, Melissa. So the creek and Waller Creek, since it's such an urban area, has some very kind of unstable bank conditions. So this is one of the west banks of Waller Creek, and there was a lot of old rubble and debris. So we're actually having to kind of shore up that space. And this is a machine that's putting soil nail walls into it, or soil nails into the wall to kind of hold it. But ultimately, this is going to be a balanced system of restoration, where we're balancing some of the harder surfaces to stabilize the bank with softer engineering solutions. So we want to try to use as much natural material as possible, including plantings, bare root plantings, large woody debris, anything we can possibly get. If you can go to the next slide. So this is a rendering that our design team put together, and it shows what we're really trying to mimic. The team is doing the best it can possibly do to bring in kind of bioengineering into the process. So instead of using walls where we don't have to use them, we can use large tree trunks and things like that as best we can. This is also a rendering just showing how these systems, having kind of a riparian vegetated area, can slow down water and infiltrate water. And this is kind of a cool idea where we can have and make these like stone seeps within the area. Okay, so we're gonna walk across the 14th Street Bridge, and we're gonna kind of pretend that we're going to some sort of event. So the first thing we're going to see if you walk in there is you're going to be welcomed by the Moody Amphitheater kind of entrance. And that's a series of bays that have maybe merch or information or things for the public to grab. It has a series of restrooms as well. And then you see the canopy kind of popping up over the top. And I'm going to pass it off to Lisa to talk a little bit about the Moody Amphitheater.
Sure. So As Michelle introduced, sort of the Moody Amphitheater entrance, I don't know that she covered, but it's a 5,000 person outdoor venue that will be within a park. So this is kind of a new idea for the city of Austin and is made possible through our partnership with Waterloo Greenway Conservancy. For the building itself, we are attempting to get certified under the Austin Energy Green Building rating system. In case you don't know, this rating system was developed in the 90s prior to LEED, which is kind of the national international equivalent. And AEGB really provides local sustainability rating system and support through that process. So if you go to the next one, there's a whole bunch of prerequisites and credits that we're going to be pursuing as part of the project, but I'm highlighting a few here that make this rating system and this project a little bit unique. As I said, AEGB is a local rating system for sustainability in green building. And as part of that, there's a prerequisite, which means we have to meet current codes. So we have an extra set of eyes going through our energy modeling and all of the submittals and drawings in order to make sure that we're meeting those codes at a bare minimum. There's also a requirement for construction waste management. So essentially not sending all of your construction waste to the landfill. That's now code 2 at 50% for all City of Austin projects. But right now, as of last month, the Waterloo Park project is hitting 80.8%. And we hope that that will continue to go up. In addition, there's a whole bunch of stuff as our building is sited within a park. We're doing a lot of credits in the site section, but the category that we really want to talk about today is all about water. At Waterloo, that really is the sustainability story that makes a lot of sense and connects all of these elements in this hardworking park. We are currently on track for a 2-star rating in the Austin Energy Green Building System, and we are aiming for a 3-star rating, so we're hoping to get there. We're all very excited, as I think you could hear from Michelle, that the canopy structure has gone up. Pretty much all of the main truss structure is erected. It's a big deal, and this is just one of those elements from a materiality standpoint that a lot of folks may not know. When you see a concrete and steel building, you're thinking maybe that's not so sustainable, and in many cases the carbon aspect is not great. But we're looking for a really durable material, and steel in particular is about 95% recycled content in the US. So, and it's infinitely recyclable, which is great. I think, yep. In addition, this building is really sunk into the park. So if you enter into the park off of Trinity Street, you'll actually be essentially on top of the back of house spaces looking down onto the stage, which will be a really cool view. In addition, we've got several green roofs. Some of them are sort of on the back side of that building as it gets buried, the ones you see on the left side of your screen. And then the 2 northern ones are a little bit more typical green roof buildup. I think we can go to the next one. In addition, like I said, the story here is really about water. So as you can imagine, with a 5,000 person venue, we have a great deal of restrooms, including about 80-something flush fixtures, toilets and urinals. And rather than use potable water for all of those, we are tying into an existing reclaimed water line within Trinity Street to flush all of those fixtures. So we won't be using potable water for that. And that will save approximately 500,000 gallons of water every year. You can see here of a construction shot from several months ago. They are fitting out all of that plumbing. So there is a lot of bathrooms in here. And I'm going to pass it. Oh, and then there's also, as you walk out of the Moody Amphitheater, there's the Great Lawn, which is essentially an extension of parkland over the creek, which adds about an acre of parkland that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And I'm going to pass it back over to Michelle to talk about the cistern and rain gardens and the other aspects of that water story at Waterloo.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. This shows a little bit of that Great Lawn and how it kind of swoops out over Waller Creek. All right, so Lisa mentioned that we are able to use reclaimed water, which is just a really awesome aspect of the project. But one of the things we also wanted to do is use water that falls on the site. You know, we're kind of mandated to try to manage as much stormwater as possible. So what we've done to accommodate this and do it is to take the runoff from the Great Lawn and the surrounding areas near it and collect it. So right at the base of the base of the stage of the amphitheater, there's a large 47,000 gallon subterranean cistern with a pump. And what that'll do is during large rain events, it'll take about the 2-inch water quality volume, and it'll pump it up to a series of 3 rain gardens that you're seeing kind of on the left side of your screen. And those rain gardens, they're going to be truly gardens, so they're going to be looking beautiful, hopefully, and really lush. And they will take the water and kind of filter it down into the ground, and so essentially cleaning that water over time. So that's one of the other stories here. These next 2 photos show, and this is actually happened last year, but these photos show the cistern hole, the void for the cistern being excavated. So it's a huge hole, as you guys can see. And so that, if you go see a show, you're going to be kind of standing over that cistern. So then the final kind of water story is about how we irrigate the parkland. You know, most spaces and gardens and parklands in Austin do need some sort of source of irrigation, especially because we have really, really hot summers. We are trying to reduce and be as best as we can with the irrigation because we're using plants that are native and adapted to the region. But we're also not going to be using any potable water for irrigation. The irrigation water will actually come from the pumping station, so the inlet pond area, and some of the water from Lady Bird Lake. And it's through a contract and a relationship we have with LCRA. And when that system isn't functioning, and this is a picture of the inlet structure and the inlet pond, and when that system's not functioning, the backup system will be the reclaimed water system. So ultimately, we shouldn't really have to use any potable water for the landscape. At this point, we haven't done the calculations, or I personally haven't, for how much water that's going to save in the long run, but it's going to be significant. Okay, so let's walk up from the Great Lawn. We're going to go up the hill a bit to this area called the Meredith Plaza. And as you can see here, there's these 2 very beautiful live oak trees that have been part of the character of Waterloo Park for years. And these are trees that we've preserved in place, and it's going to have a beautiful deck space underneath it for people to enjoy. The deck has to be very carefully installed in this, and so there was a lot of kind of very gentle kind of maneuvering around the trees in this for this. They had to air spade out through the kind of root system to find where they can put in the columns for the deck. But I want to talk a little bit about our tree story here. Just pause and say that we've preserved quite a few. So the first thing we've done is really preserve as many trees as we possibly can. Most of the trees we're preserving are in the southwest corner of the site, which I'll talk about in more detail. We also relocated trees. So we relocated 4 trees on the site, from the site to another area that were just kind of in the way of a structure that was going in. Then we also are relocating trees to our site from the neighborhood. So we are able to take a tree from the Capitol Complex area, and we're currently working on getting 2 trees from UT and 1 from a private developer, which we hope happens soon. And then finally, we're adding a whole new urban tree and forest area here, and we're bringing about 500 new trees to the site. So it's quite a bit of vegetation. This is a view just past those trees of the canopy again, and so Trinity is on the left side of your screen, and you can kind of see this is what Lisa was talking about when you're kind of on the top level of the amphitheater. This is a picture of the large Capitol Complex tree that came to our site. This was last year, and the tree is doing great, and they're taking care of these trees for the next 5 years, so quite some time to make sure they are happy and healthy as they have their new home. All right, so let's continue kind of up the hill a bit to the Family Pavilion and Deal Booth Promenade. The Deal Booth Promenade is this serpentine pathway that moves through the site. It's shaped this way because we've had to negotiate the topography in this area. There's a big topographic change, and in order for us to safely have people have an ADA accessible path, this was the choice to kind of flow it through the site. And it's also going to be wonderful layering, so you'll be able to walk under it. It looks really large right now because that's essentially the framework to build it, but it's going to be a little narrower than that. And it's going to be just a really beautiful way to enter the site. This is a rendering of what is the Family Pavilion area, and it's a series of food trucks, public restrooms, and that's what you're seeing, kind of the concrete structure in the background. And then off this image, there's a small nature play area. So you'll be able to take kids there, and space for kids in a really urban downtown area is critical. They need places to be themselves and to play. So here's a little more of a close-up of the restroom facility. It's going to have three unisex bathrooms and then one ADA and family-friendly bathroom. And the sink system is going to be kind of in the middle. So you're seeing the some of the infrastructure for that going in this image. This building was designed by Michael Schu's office, and it relates a lot to the amphitheater, which was designed by Thomas Pfeiffer and Associates. You also see this space behind the building. The landscape is going to come right up to the back of that, so it'll almost be like the amphitheater, very nestled into the landscape. Okay, so let's continue our walk. Now we're headed to the Hill Country Garden. This is a really exciting part of the project. So here, this image is looking kind of northeast down into the Hill Country Garden. You're seeing these trees. These are some of the trees we've been able to preserve in place. And then you see the promenade and then another walkway that kind of negotiates and walks in between these trees. And really the idea of this space is to create an area for people, like the human-nature interaction. The space has the curved wall there you're seeing is going to be a bench space. So there's areas to sit and have a moment of relaxation under the trees. We can go to the next one too. And within those kind of framework of the concrete trails there, we're going to have pervious pavement. So a pavement that can take water flows and it doesn't just run off into the site. And all of these curved paths are creating these planting beds. And the way the design team has chosen to really plant this area is not just having a ground cover and a tree, like maybe a lawn and a tree, but actually really designing plant communities. So these are going to be very, very diverse areas. Overall, we have about 60,000 plants coming to the site, and that represent about 170 different species. So, and this particular area too will be more like hill country kind of ecosystem. So shallow soils, limestone soils and whatnot. And I'll pass it off to Lisa to talk a little bit more about kind of our final stop and about the materials used in our project.
Yeah, so this area of the park we call the Arrow Overlook. It's really a framing of that meandering pathway over and around the rain gardens that we've talked about previously. And the idea here is really a biophilic one. So like Michelle talked about, as you're walking through the Hill Country Garden, you're really in a moment of refuge under the trees and experiencing nature that way. As you walk out onto the Arrow Overlook, you're really experiencing a moment of prospect. So you're able to see pretty far to the south, to the southeast, and down to the rain gardens. In addition, it's just highlighting, I think, all of the work that our contractor, DPR, and all of their subs are doing related to the stonework and the site work within this project. Here we're showing Lueders limestone, but for the whole project, I think we have 3 different quarries as local as we can get. So Looters is the furthest away, but we also have a quarry in Florence. So mostly about an hour away to try and bring all of the stone here. We think it's really beautiful, and we're excited to see the layers as they go in, planting soil soon and then plants coming shortly. I think that's it. And so with that, I think just thank you so much. We're excited to be able to take you on this virtual tour, although we can't take you out in a hard hat tour today. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Hi everyone, it's Melissa Ayala again with Waterloo Greenway. I am going to help facilitate questions for Michelle and Lisa. So if you could please submit them in the chat and I'll read them out loud so we can make sure we get all your questions answered.
I think one question while that's going on, one question that we didn't address that has come up before is sort of, are you guys still in construction right now? You know, we're all dealing in sort of this new world of stay home, work safe in COVID-19 response. And I just wanted to address that quickly, but yes, our construction site is still underway. We are taking all of the city and state precautions as well as DSD or recommendations by the CDC, and being really careful, but that construction site is still going.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lisa. And we also have a question about opening and our plans to open later this year. And just to answer that, you know, obviously right now is a really difficult time for our community, but we are still pursuing those plans and haven't made any changes. Of course, it all depends on, you know, our current dynamic. If we do make any changes, we'll make sure to update our community. So thank you for asking that. We also have a question about the concert venue. Is the concert venue limited access for ticketed events? So to answer that question, we will be programming a combination of events with free community programming and our ticketed performances, and any revenue that we make through the venue is reinvested into the park and our operations for the entire Greenway. So it's important for us to have some money coming in to help support that long-term operations and maintenance, which Waterloo Greenway as a nonprofit is responsible for. So you can look forward to a lot of events like community theater, arts and culture, music, and then things like yoga in the park and fitness programs.
I also maybe just want to weigh in really quick on that and give some kudos to our design team who have so carefully thought through the siting of the Moody Amphitheater within the parkland. I think there's going to be a big difference here when events happen from what maybe the Austin community is used to seeing at Silker or at Auditorium Shores, where essentially the whole park gets fenced off. Here, there's really, it's a limited area without a whole lot of fencing that has to happen in order to have an event. And I think I saw another question in the chat about the restrooms staying open. And so there is a whole area, that whole Hill Country Garden, the family pavilion restrooms that will remain open and outside of sort of the ticketed area.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have a question about design elements that help deal with sound.
Yeah, there's been, within the Tom Pfeiffer and Partners team, Arup is our acoustical lighting and AV consultant, and there's been a whole lot of studies working with the City of Austin's music office, trying to do some baseline studies around sound at the exterior of the site, and then making some careful choices as far as berming the edge of the Great Lawn so that it kind of captures the sound there. You may be aware that we also have a very restrictive Capitol View corridor over the site, so hence sort of sinking that amphitheater into the garden really helps as well. So we've done a lot from the modeling and design side, and we hope that the execution and the experiential measures up.
Absolutely. And we are also a part of the Red River Cultural District, and they have some incredible experience with running performances and musical acts and managing sound and being respectful of our neighbors. So we've also been learning a lot from those venues in our neighborhood. We also have a question about the kids area and if kids can climb on the trees.
I can jump in on that one. So the kids area in this part of the park it's a smaller area, but I would say it's going to be really exciting. We have a granite slide that kind of comes down around, and you'll be able to kind of look down on it from the serpentine path. And then what we have for climbing is these large kind of wooden structures that kind of are almost like sculptural in a way, but it'll be like climbing a tree essentially. So all natural materials put together for kids. There's also going to be areas, little lawn areas for people to rest, and then some toddler related place structures like these kind of what we call mega grass, which is essentially this really, really high grass that you can kind of weave your way through. And again, all of those things are kind of natural materials. Even the mega grass, I believe, is made out of wood. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yeah, and if you guys are interested in more of those details, join us for our next tour that'll be on May 6th, where we talk about some more of our park features and how construction is going on those. So we have a question about some additional phases of the Waterloo Greenway project, and someone asking about the project, including the part of the Waller Creek Trail extending towards Lady Bird Lake. So Michelle, can you tell us briefly about the Creek Delta section?
Yeah, sure. So if I look at the question, let's see the top part. Yeah, so we didn't go on the tour to this area of Waterloo Park, but essentially just where we were in the hill country, right across, if you were to head east and go to the southeast corner of our site, that's where it's going to connect down and go underneath the 12th Street Bridge and start the trail system down to Lady Bird Lake. Now, as I mentioned in kind of the first slide I showed, we're doing this in a series of phases. So the next phase of the project is actually going to be from 4th Street down to Lady Bird Lake, so a lot kind of farther downtown. And then we're going to get more into the center section, and that just is because of logistics and those sorts of things to be able to get the work done. We office at Symphony Square, which is really just a block away from Waterloo Park. And so there might be an interim kind of condition where you can walk down to Symphony Square from Waterloo Park. I think we're still kind of thinking that all through. But yes, ultimately, when the full breadth of the project is completely done, you'll be able to start the trail at Waterloo Park.
Thank you. And we have a question about permanent lighting. Is there going to be permanent lighting at night? And if we have any renderings related to that. So maybe Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about the lighting plan for the park?
Sure. I think I'm unmuted. Yes, there will be lighting. As you may know, the projects south of Waterloo Park are going to be going for sites certification. And with AEGB certification, there's a credit for reducing light pollution. So all of our lighting is download lighting. It is intended to not disturb the sort of nocturnal habitat that is happening. It's mostly in handrails as a downlight that comes basically right from your handrail onto your path for safety. So that's sort of the general lighting throughout the whole project, but primarily for the park uses. There will, as it's a performance venue, be lighting for shows at night that is stage lighting, performance lighting. And I know a little bit less about that, but it would be fairly typical of a performance venue. Not every day and not really only when shows are happening. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And related to this, having both of you on the chat, we have a question about the partnership between Waterloo Greenway and Austin Parks and Recreation Department. So can y'all talk a little bit about how you work together and just tell us about the partnership a little bit?
Sure. I also just don't want to forget, HARD is one of the sponsoring departments within the city of Austin, but we are also, we work very closely day in and day out with the Watershed Protection Department as another sponsoring department. As you can tell, as Michelle presented, and throughout the future projects, we're going to be doing a lot of creek restoration and reconstruction. And so they are really the sponsoring department for that kind of work. So I don't want to forget them, but our partnership between the city and Waterloo Greenway Conservancy, I think, was conceived after the Waller Creek Tunnel went into place, or was under construction. And this partnership came about in 2011 and sort of hosted this international design competition so that the creek and trail improvements could be one of a really high caliber, above and beyond the typical city delivery process. So we are all working together and have been over the last 7 years and continuing to do so in delivering those projects at that threshold.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just as a reminder, we are getting some questions about different topics related to the project. And if we don't get to your question, please tune in to the next webinar that I mentioned that's on May 6th, where we'll talk about more of the park features. We'll make sure to save some of these questions that we don't get to answer during that time. I think we've just about gotten to everything. So I do want to go ahead and talk about the next couple opportunities that we have to engage with us. So this is a part of our Waterloo-In-Place series that's intended to keep our community engaged and up to date with how Waterloo Greenway is doing. We have a series of art classes and a couple other virtual tours like this one. I've mentioned the Waterloo Park construction tour a couple times. Again, that's on May 6th. Following that, we'll also have a tour of the Waller Creek Tunnel with our Watershed Protection Department and our capital projects team. That one will be really exciting because you get a behind the scenes look of the tunnel that we've talked about in that intake facility that you saw in some of those pictures. So please make sure to put these on your calendar. Later this week, we also have a virtual art class that's going to be really fun, family friendly. Please make sure to join us. That is coming up on Friday. This series wouldn't be possible without our community support and some really important partners to us, so I do want to recognize them. We want to thank our program sponsors, BBVA, the PAL Foundation, Susan Vaughn Foundation, Waterloo Sparkling Water, and the Word Company. They're all helping us make this project possible and make sure that we can keep engaging our community. So please reach out to us if you have any other questions, if there's any way that we can stay engaged with you. You can find more information at waterloogreenway.org. Again, my name is Melissa, and we've had Michelle and Lisa chatting with us today. We really thank you for joining us on this virtual tour and hope that you guys will join us again. Have a great afternoon, everyone.